I read 70 books this year, and I'm going to tell you which ones I think are worth reading or not. I started the year with a leftover from December, Kiss Her Once for Me. This is a sapphic Christmas rom-com. She's fake dating her landlord for money, but when she goes home with him for the holidays, she realizes his sister is someone she had a one-night stand with. I liked this. I thought it was really cute. I would recommend it if you're looking for a Christmas rom-com, but it's not an all-time favorite of mine. Then I read the first Percy Jackson book, The Lightning Thief. I never read these when I was a kid, so I kind of wanted to just see what all the hype is about. I really liked this. I thought it was cute. I just didn't really feel like continuing on with the series at the time. Maybe I will next year now that the show's coming out. But I think if you're like me and you never read these as a kid, they're worth giving a shot. Make-A-Wish is a single dad trope rom-com. This was just okay. It was cute, but I remember it dragged, and honestly, I think you could skip this one. The Do-Over by Lynn Painter is a YA romance. It's a time warp story set on Valentine's Day. I liked the characters and I thought the story was cute, but I just don't think time warp stories are for me. But if you do like them, I would definitely recommend this. Truth About Forever is one of my comfort reads. I read this for the first time in high school and just loved it. It's about a girl whose father passes away and she's just going through it, and how she meets new friends and new people that help get her out of her comfort zone, and I just love it. It's the ultimate comfort read for me. I would definitely recommend it. Life's Too Short, I think, is Abby Jimenez's most underrated book. It's about a travel YouTuber who has to give it up when she gets custody of her niece, and it's a romance between her and her neighbor. I really liked this. I liked the characters a lot. The romance was good, and I would definitely recommend it. Then I reread Every Summer After because I wanted to read Meet Me at the Lake when it came out. This is a past present timeline story. Her parents buy a summer house and the romance is between her and her neighbor. I really like this book. I know it's very divisive because it does have a trope at the end that I don't love and I know a lot of people don't love, but for me, it doesn't ruin the story and I still really like it, so I would definitely recommend it if you haven't read it yet. Then I did another reread, Ready Player One. This is one of my favorite books of all time. I think this is my third or fourth time reading it. Basically, the world goes to shit and so everybody lives in virtual reality, and he enters a competition and it's all centered around 80s stuff. This is just the perfect read if you're in a slump or you just want something that's really gonna suck you in. This is perfect. I would definitely recommend it, and it's way better than the movie. So if you've seen the movie and you didn't love it, try the book. It's so much better. Then I read Beautiful Disaster because the movie was coming out and my friend wanted me to go see it with her. This is a good bad book. If you want just like a trashy romance, something that's easy to read, borderline toxic, then I would recommend it, but it's not good, if that makes sense. Then I read The Layover, which is a romance between two flight attendants after they get stuck on an island for the weekend because of flight delays. I remember liking this at the moment, but I completely forgot that I even read this. It was kind of forgettable. So I would say if you've been thinking about reading it, give it a shot, but you won't be missing anything crazy if you don't read it. Then I read the first book in the Shadow and Bone series. This is a YA fantasy series. I wanted to read this because Netflix made a show out of it and I really enjoyed the show. This was okay, but I wasn't interested enough to keep going with the series, so I'm normally never this person, but I feel like you could just watch the show for this one. But again, I only read the first one, so I can't say for sure. I then read 3 graphic novels by Kay O'Neill: Aquicorn Cove, Princess Ever After, and The Tea Dragon Society. These are like kids graphic novels, but they're honestly really good. I love the art style. I think they're so beautiful. The only one I wouldn't necessarily recommend is Princess Ever After. It wasn't bad, but it was definitely my least favorite of the 3 that I read. Then I did a reread of People We Meet on Vacation. I am just not myself if I'm not rereading an Emily Henry book every like 3 months. Friends to Lovers, travel romance, When Harry Met Sally retelling. Emily Henry is just the best. I love her books. I recommend every single one of them. Then I was still in my Leigh Bardugo phase, so I read Six of Crows. This is another fantasy that follows 6 people as they try to pull off this heist, and I loved this. I thought it was so good. I would definitely recommend this over Shadow and Bone. Then I read Yours Truly by Abby Jimenez. Enemies to Lovers turned fake dating story. I really liked this. It does have one trope I don't love, but the love interest in this is perfect. I love him so much. Definitely recommend. Then Happy Place by Emily Henry came out. This is a second chance romance, past present, takes place at a beach cottage in Maine. Again, I love Emily Henry. She's my favorite. Yes, I think this is worth reading. Then I read Meet Me at the Lake by Carly Fortune, which was very disappointing. Another second chance romance. They spend one day together and then fall out of touch, and now it's 10 years later and they're reconnecting. This just didn't do it for me. Didn't connect with the characters. Didn't really like the storyline. I think you can skip this one. I read Twisted Games, which is the second book in the Twisted series. This is a romance between a princess and her bodyguard. Again, is this book kind of bad? Yeah. Did I get sucked in and eat it up and still would recommend it? also yes. Then I read A Flicker in the Dark, which is a thriller. When the main character was 12, her dad went to prison for being a serial killer, and now it's like 25 years later and people are disappearing in the same way that they were before her father was arrested, but her father's still in jail, and it seems like the cases are sort of following her, so she wants to figure out what happened. I liked this. I thought it had a good twist, and I would recommend it if you like thrillers. And I read a YA murder mystery, A Good Girl's Guide to Murder. I feel like this is so popular, but popular for a reason. I really liked it. 5 years ago in this town, a girl went missing and then her boyfriend commits suicide a few days later, so they just assume that makes him guilty. The main character in this doesn't think that's true, so for her senior capstone project, she decides to solve the murder. I really enjoyed this. I thought the whole murder mystery plotline of this was done really well and was really interesting, and I would definitely recommend. Another reread. I'm a big rereader, as you can tell. The Summer of Broken Rules is a YA romance. It's set on Martha's Vineyard, I believe, during a wedding. This is really fun. It has like a big cast of characters because she has a really big family, and there's this big assassin game they do, but she's also dealing with the grief of losing her sister the year before. It's the perfect beachy summer read. Definitely would recommend. And I read The True Love Experiment. This is a romance that takes place during a dating reality show. The girl who's on the show is a romance writer, and the romance is between the producer of the show, who is also a single dad. I would definitely recommend this. One thing specifically I love about this is they talk a lot about romance books and just like being a fangirl basically, which I really appreciated and thought it was a really nice touch to the book. Then because I was in my reality dating show era, I reread The Charm Offensive. This is a male-male romance where they're on a show that's basically The Bachelor, but the guy who's the bachelor ends up falling for one of the producers. I love this book. The characters are so special. They both have different mental health challenges that they're trying to overcome, and if you feel unlovable, read this book. And Love Theoretically by Ali Hazelwood came out. This is one of her STEM romances. The main character in this one fake dates people as a side hustle, and when she shows up at her interview to be a teacher at MIT, she realizes one of the people on the hiring committee is her fake boyfriend's brother. I loved this one. I think it's my favorite Ali Hazelwood so far. If you like Ali Hazelwood, you would definitely like this one. And even if you haven't read any of her books, I think this would be a good one to start with. Done and Dusted is a cowboy romance, cowboy and cowgirl. It's also brother's best friend, and this is my first cowboy romance I ever read, and honestly, I ate it up. And I read The Soulmate Equation by Christina Lauren, which is actually a companion novel to The True Love Experiment. The guy in this one invents basically a mashup between 23andMe and a dating website. Like, it uses your DNA to find your perfect match, and then the love interest is his perfect match, so they start fake dating so the company can have good publicity. She's also a single mom, and I really like this book. I would definitely recommend it. Then I read Love on the Brain, another Ali Hazelwood. This one's between neuroscientists who work for NASA developing helmets, I think. I think if you like Ali Hazelwood, you would still enjoy this, but I think if you don't like her, then definitely don't try and read this one. It's definitely, in my opinion, my least favorite Ali Hazelwood. Then I read Will They or Won't They? This is between two actors who were on this really famous like CW-esque show and dating in real life, and then when they broke up, she left the show, and now they're coming back together to do another season of the show, like a reunion. I remember really liking this when I read it, but honestly, I completely forgot I even read this until I saw it just now. I think if you like reading about famous people and actors and stuff like that, you would enjoy this. Then I reread The Love Hypothesis because I was just in my Ali Hazelwood phase. I feel like this is one of those books where I understand when people criticize it. I really do. Like, they make valid points, but I just like this book. I think it's really fun. I don't care that it's Reylo fanfiction, okay? And I read Heartless by Elsie Silver. This is another cowboy romance between a single dad and his nanny. Again, I was just eating up the cowboy romances, and I love the single parent trope. This just checked off so many of my boxes. I would definitely recommend. Then I read The Unhoneymooners by Christina Lauren. This is about a maid of honor and a best man who are the only two people in the wedding who don't get food poisoning, so they go on the honeymoon for the bride and groom. This one's so popular, but honestly, I think you can skip it. It's my least favorite Christina Lauren that I've read, and I just found the main character so annoying. I normally love books like this, but this one is just not a favorite of mine. Then I reread All Roads Lead Here. This is another comfort read for me. The main character just got divorced, and she's moving back to her hometown in Colorado to start over, and she hasn't been back since her mom went missing on a hike when she was a kid. It's just about her like rediscovering herself, hiking to get closer to her mom. She's also living in a garage apartment, and the love interest is her landlord, who's a single dad. I would 100% recommend this. It's a little bit long, but I think it's worth it. It's just a very like cozy, comforting romance. Okay, last cowboy romance, I swear. Flawless by Elsie Silver. These are all part of a series, the Chestnut Spring series, and each book is a different brother. So this brother is a famous bull rider, rodeo guy, I don't know, I forget. And she's this publicist who is living with him after he goes through this big scandal. I really liked this one. I would recommend this one as well, except I personally didn't like it as much as I liked Heartless. Then I reread Red, White, and Royal Blue. I actually did an entire like long spoiler reading vlog of this. If you want to go watch that. This is one of my all-time favorites. It's a romance between the first son of the United States and the Prince of England. So is it realistic? No, absolutely not. But I just love it. I love the characters. And I think this is one of like the most romantic and intimate romances I've ever read. I read all 4 books in the Natural series. This follows a group of teenagers who all have different abilities, and the FBI hires them to solve cold cases for them. I really liked this entire series. I think the premise is really cool. Each book has a different case they're trying to solve, and then there's an overarching case that they follow throughout the entire series. And in general, I just really liked this entire series. Would definitely recommend. I also read the Inheritance Game series this year, except the 4th one. I still haven't read the 4th one yet. This is about Avery, whose mom has passed away, so she's living in her car and with her sister. She has nothing to her name basically, and she finds out that she has inherited the fortune of the richest man in Texas. It's billions and billions of dollars. His huge estate. The only catch is that she has to go live in his mansion in Texas with his 4 grandsons for a year. And they're basically just trying to figure out why she got this money, how she's related to them at all. It's full of puzzles and clues and mysteries. Her books are perfect if you just want like an easy series to read that's gonna get you sucked in. Perfect for a reading slump, and definitely worth reading in my opinion. Then I read Fool Me Once, another underrated rom-com. This follows 2 college exes who end up having to work on this political campaign together. I really liked both characters in this. I liked the romance. Would definitely recommend. Then I read another book by the same author, In My Dreams I Hold a Knife. This is a thriller set at a college. One of the girls in their friend group dies, and they pin it on her boyfriend, but they don't have enough evidence to ever prove it, and no one really knows actually what happened. Now it's their 10-year reunion, and they're all coming back together, and they decided to figure out what happened once and for all. I really liked this. Probably one of my favorite thrillers I've read. I thought it was interesting, really sucked me in, and I didn't see the plot twist coming. And that's really all you want from a thriller at the end of the day. Then I read Fourth Wing, Me and Everybody Else on the Planet. This is a romantasy set at a war college for dragon riders. I liked this, but I don't think it's as good as it was hyped up to be. I think if you're into romantasy and it sounds good to you, definitely check it out. But honestly, I don't think you're missing that much if you haven't read this. And I read another thriller, The Only One Left. This is about a caretaker who has to go take care of a woman who is known to have killed her entire family like 50 years prior. It's set on this big house on the coast, and because she's had strokes and stuff, she actually can't speak. So they communicate through a typewriter, and the old woman decides that she wants to tell the caretaker what actually happened. I really enjoyed this. It's one of those thrillers that has a lot of plot twists at the end. Like, there is definitely a lot going on. So if you're not into that, I don't know if you would love this, but I was gooped. Honestly, my jaw was on the floor, and I really liked it, so I would recommend. Then I read The 7-Year Slip, new comfort book, Unlocked. This is a romance. It's about a girl who inherits her late aunt's apartment, and she realizes when she moves in that the apartment slips 7 years in the past, and the romance is between her and the man who was living in the apartment 7 years ago. This is just beautifully written. It has so many good quotes. It's so cozy and comforting, and I loved every second of it. Please go read this if you haven't already. Then I read When in Rome. This is about a really famous pop star who is overwhelmed with her life, and she loves Audrey Hepburn, so she wants to have her When in Rome moment, but she can't actually go to Rome. So she ends up in Rome, Kentucky, and this small town guy lets her live with him. I love a small town romance. This town in particular is really cute. It's basically Stars Hollow. I will say I wasn't obsessed in the beginning. You kind of have to stick it out through the second half at the end. But if you can do that, I would recommend it, especially if you love small town romances. Then I read Practice Makes Perfect, which is the second book in this series, and it's between her bodyguard and his sister. He's more of a bad boy, and she's really sweet and a goody two-shoes, and he becomes her dating coach. I loved their dynamic. I thought they were so sweet together. Again, set in the same really cute small town. Would definitely recommend. I actually liked this one more than the first one. Then I read Wildfire by Hannah Grace. This is the second book in the Maple Hill series. They all follow hockey players on this college hockey team, team. This one is set at a summer camp. They have a really awkward one-night stand and they think they're never gonna see each other again, but they both end up working as counselors at this summer camp. I liked this. I love a good summary book, and I thought both characters had really good character development. I will say though, while the first book in the series is more of a sports romance, this one isn't at all. There's no hockey or anything like that. Besides the fact that he's on the hockey team, none of it is sports related or about hockey or anything like that. So if that's what you were looking for in the next book in this series, you're not gonna get that, but I still think it's worth a read. Then I read A Court of Thorns and Roses. I personally would say you can skip this one. However, I only read the first one, so I can't really say for sure. Eventually, I will probably continue with the series. I don't think the first one was that good. I don't think that's an unpopular opinion. I think a lot of people say that about the series, but this just really did not work for me. Then I read Caught Up. This is a sports romance between a baseball player who's a single dad and his coach's daughter who becomes his live-in nanny. Can you tell what my favorite tropes are? I enjoyed this a lot. I think it's definitely worth a read. And even if you're not super into sports romances, I think you could still like this because they obviously talk about baseball a lot, but it's not hugely detailed or anything, so it doesn't like overpower the story. Then I read Iris Kelly Doesn't Date. This is the third book in the Bright Falls series, which are all sapphic romances that follow the same friend group. In this one, they also have a really awkward one-night stand and think they're never gonna see each other again, but they end up both being in the same community theater production, which leads to them fake dating. I really liked this one, specifically Stevie, the one character. I loved her a lot. She deals with really bad anxiety, so if you have anxiety, I think you would like her as a character. I would recommend this and all the other books in the series too. Then I finally read The Ballad of Songbirds and Snakes. Like an idiot, I put off reading this for 3 years, even though I'm a Hunger Games fanatic. I loved this. Okay, I was wrong. I'm sorry, Suzanne. I loved this. If you liked The Hunger Games when you were younger or still like it, don't do what I did. Please go read this. And also, if you haven't read The Hunger Games as an adult, go reread those too. Then I read Love Redesigned. This is a romance between family friends, but they're also like childhood rivals. And one now owns a construction company and the other one is an interior designer. So they join together to remodel this house. I liked this. I thought it was cute. I don't have any huge issues with it, but it just isn't an all-time favorite of mine, but it was good. Then I read Check and Mate. This is Ali Hazelwood's new release. It's a YA romance, except in my opinion, it's more like a new adult between rival chess players, which sounds so boring, and honestly only Ali Hazelwood could get me to read a book about chess players, but it was actually really interesting and I loved this. Loved the characters, loved the love interest, thought it was really good. Then I read The Honeymoon Crashers, which is actually an audiobook only novella to the Unhoneymooners. The couple from that book is getting married and now it's their best man and maid of honor planning their wedding in Hawaii. I had low expectations for this because I didn't love the Unhoneymooners that much, but this was actually so cute. I loved it. The audiobook is really well done. If you like audiobook, I would definitely recommend. Then I read Betting on You by Lynn Painter, and this is one of my favorites for the whole year. It's a YA romance. Another When Harry Met Sally retelling. They meet, they don't get along, they bump into each other a couple years later, and now it's a couple years after that, and they work together. And if you've seen When Harry Met Sally, they have the whole girls and boys can't be friends, but they end up being friends. I loved this so much. They just had the most perfect dynamic. The Friends to Lovers was so good. They have good banter. I just was obsessed with this. Definitely recommend. Then I read Twisted Love, which is the first book in the Twisted series. This one's brother's best friend. The brother is going away for a year, so he asks his friend to keep an eye on his little sister while he's away. So he moves in next door and he's like this tech billionaire. Again, is it a literary masterpiece? No, but it's a good time. And last but not least, I read the first 3 books in the Throne of Glass series. Assassin's Blade, which is actually a prequel that you can read, I think, at any point in the first 4 books of the series, but I read it first, and then Throne of Glass and Crown of Midnight. No spoilers, okay? No spoilers for the rest of the series. This is a fantasy series where magic has been outlawed and the main character, Selena, is an assassin, and she ends up in this competition to become the king's assassin. So the first book is all about that, and there's also a love triangle situation going on between the prince and the captain of the guard. And then I don't want to get into the plot too much because I'm going in blind. Like, I don't really know anything about these books as I'm reading them, and it's really fun to see what happens. And I'm really liking it so far. Definitely liking it way, way, way more than I liked the first ACOTAR book, which I was so happy about. Would definitely recommend. And that was it. Those were the 70 books I read this year. And honestly, looking back, that was a really good reading year. There was only a few that I really didn't love. Hopefully 2024 is just as good. If you want to find me anywhere else, I'll have all my other socials down below. Thank you guys so much for watching and have a happy new year.